Hi, welcome everyone. This is my first talk. I usually shy away from opportunities like this, but I was really excited to speak on this topic. More often than not, people and organizations usually focus on the technical capabilities of a tool or a platform, but not really necessarily convincing and talking about actually getting that tool or platform in your organization. I've used Sanity on a few different projects, some personal and at my job, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of talk about recommending Sanity and also kind of talking about some of the known and unknown considerations when it comes to recommending Sanity. So to begin, I just want to share a few quick things about me. I'm a husband and a father. I have three children, ages 16, 11, and 5. Though my 5-year-old will probably tell you that he's 6 now because his birthday's in in a month or so. I love trying out new tech. I try products and find myself spending a lot of my free time looking at products that wind up on Product Hunt. Um, Currently reading a book called Invisible Women, which talks about data bias in the world designed by men by Caroline Criado Perez. And the current game that I'm playing is Journey to the Planet on Stadia. And last but not least, I am a developer at a leading direct-to-consumer retail fashion brand. Um, my initial experience as a developer is late nights working on code. Um, Always behind a computer, just plugging away. But the reality, it sometimes looks like this: me on the couch, be doing PR reviews on my phone with my son in hand. Um, I wanted to kind of talk about the agenda of what I wanted to talk about when it comes to recommending Sanity to your organization. Uh, there are four real points that were considerations for me when I am discussing Sanity uh, with my when I was discussing Sanity with my organization and also on some of the personal projects that I've worked on. So let's look at identifying the problem. Identifying a problem is the art of identifying a problem is going to be unique and specific to your organization. Sometimes the suggestion of sanity may be, sometimes the suggestion of sanity pertaining to the organization may be dependent on what you're looking to solve, at what you're looking to use sanity to solve at your organization, whether it be you're trying to replace an old CMS, things are not efficient and functional, but it's really key and prudent to really hammer in and determine what your specific problem is going to be and how you're utilizing sanity to solve it. Without that, you are unable to really be able to provide the key documentations that you're looking for to convince people within your organization why sanity is a right choice for you. One of the things that I found that was helpful to me when pitching Sanity was being able to determine, um, but first looking at some of the case studies that was available on the sanity.io website. I remember back in 2018, which is seems so long ago, considering everything that's been going on with the pandemic and shifts. But I had the opportunity to go to a meetup where I got to meet Magnus and Canute as well as Kevin Green, which was they were talking about the case study for Prima, which was another brand that actually switched over to using Sanity. They really had a very defined problem that they were looking to solve for, and then also being able to create not just defining the problem, but also defining how Sanity would be used to solve that problem. So I think it's really beneficial to have that smart goal when you're defining your problem, being very specific, which is being clear in the goals that you're trying to achieve, measurable, making sure that the um, the goals that you are achieving for can be tracked and provides an ability to show progress as you are moving through this task. Actionable, where how can Sanity help you achieve some of the features and functionalities that you're looking to solve for your problems? Realistic, listen, Sanity can help you build a lot of different things, but it can't help you build the world, hopefully. But with it's true when you're starting off that you don't over that you're not overzealous with the capabilities and functionality of Sanity, and just being very clear, concise, and realistic with the timing that you have, which brings me to the last point of time bound. Making sure that you are realistic with the timeline that you have, so that you can make sure that what you're trying to achieve is actually achievable. Once we go through that, we go through the next consideration that I had, which is what is your timeline? So when it comes to considering timeline, obviously, and apparently borderline straightforward is how much time do you have? Is this something when you're bringing on Sanity that you can do, like that has to be done immediately? Are you looking to solve within 3 to 6 months? Um, Also, it's very important to really kind of hone in on what that timeline looks like so that you can achieve what that MVP looks like. Also, to consider is understanding what your technological constraints are. Um, More often than not, when you're introducing Sanity in your organization, you're probably replacing a previous system or tool. So, what is the technological constraints and what is required to port over and bring forward some of the pieces that you have from your old system to the new system that is in your technology? Um, the last piece of timeline is understanding what some of the workflow and go live constraints are. You need to account for being able to, if you have Sanity introduced to your organization, what does that workflow look like? How are people in your organization going to be utilizing the tool, as well as what does go live look like? Is it something that you need training? Do people need time to understand how deployments look like? These are all considerations that help drive the question of what is your timeline? The third point that came to mind when I'm talking about bringing Sanity through your organization is finding champions. Um, More often than not, you've come across Sanity and you're really excited about it. You see all the features and functionality and things that will really improve things in your organization. You can see how it would be more efficient for time. It will help the developers code and come come to market faster. But it is very crucial and helpful to find other members within your organization that will be using the tool and help them get excited about the tool that you're bringing to the table. Most people, more often than not, really don't like being having a tool really thrown on them. So if you can kind of get ahead of them and share a lot of the features and functionality and show how their workflow will be improved, it really provides a good opportunity to get those champions. Um, as I say, it's really easy to make a request um, in numbers. Usually, when you're trying to convince something or trying to make a change, usually doing it in numbers usually finds a way to kind of create that opportunity and provide that momentum to incite change. As an example, during the dinner table at home, when it comes to like deciding dinner, usually more often than not, I get vetoed. But my kids usually, when they want something, they usually band together and make choices and try to convince my wife to kind of go with that. So I have not been really great at rallying dinners at home, but um, I have been great at being able to rally sanity for some of the projects and the organization I've worked for. The last additional point to consider is leadership. Um, there's something to be said about having people that are leaders of an organization behind you in the suggestion of sanity. It makes it easier for some of the higher level conversations that you may or may not be privy to, so that you can either A, understand some of the considerations and things that you may not understand from, say, an executive level, but also and help tie some of the things that you're bringing to the table from a person who's not at that higher tier level. Um, Additionally, leadership could also provide an opportunity for for you to focus on key points that will help drive the conversation of moving the decision to having sanity as a platform in your organization. And if those two things don't necessarily work for you, there is a huge sanity community of people who love and breathe sanity and provide feedback and help provide a lot of the material that you're looking for to really champion sanity in your organization. The final point that I wanted to bring to the table is know your opposition. There, in everything that you're doing, there's always going to be a group of people that are going to say no. So it is in almost like in the way of sports. It's always good to have a good offense with I'm sorry, like in sports, it's good to have a good defense. A good offense is a good defense. That's kind of what I was trying to say. It's crucial to have some of the potential and to have answers to the naysayers of ideas. Usually, some of the things that come into consideration are it's not the right time. We don't have it's not the right time. We don't have the right budget for it. It's too expensive. We don't have enough resources to kind of implement this right now. We don't really understand it. So if you kind of get ahead of some of those questions and provide solutions, which the sanity.io documentation reference case studies provide ample opportunities to find some of the answers to a lot of those considerations, it will be it will help it will help that conversation when you are being hit with some of those negative responses from naysayers. But one thing to consider, sometimes the naysayers are some of the people who you are trying to reach out as potential champions. So in finding some of those answers to the naysayer feedback, you could potentially change them from naysayers to champions. But last but not least, you can't always convince everyone, which it happens. But it's always good to try your best to have a lot of the feedback and answers ahead of time, as opposed to kind of just being bombarded with a lot of no's and then kind of feeling like you, you just you just don't want to kind of like push this forward. And I also would want to say the solution engineers at the Sanity team that are available in the Slack channels are always great to help. Really are that have been quite helpful in my experience in helping you architect the answers to some of the naysayers, finding champions, and even understanding what your timeline looks like and helping you create that MVP. So really quick, getting started with Sanity is really easy, at least for my point. Going to the Sanity starter, which is sanity.io/create, and then using one of the projects that's available to you, or via the CLI if you have Node installed, just doing an npm install at Sanity CLI-G, Sanity init, and you can have a Sanity Studio up and running. I think I clocked it. I was able to get a Sanity Studio running in like 5 minutes, probably less than that. But I think like when I first did it, because I wasn't really sure, it was like 5 minutes. Um, and these are some of the starters that I have worked on when I'm kind of prototyping or trying to show a quick iteration for a potential solution for a problem. The next blog, I have a particular interest in Vue and Nuxt, so events with Nuxt was really great. But one of the first ever was the kitchen sink, which I couldn't find for some reason when going over to Sanity Create. But Blog with Gatsby was also and then another first starter template that I got when utilizing Sanity. That being said, I think that pretty much concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Right on. Thanks, Serge. That was a lot of great information. And some people in the chat were actually saying that this framework can actually be used for recommending anything. So it was very useful. And Lauren in the chat said that she's going to use this for her kid now. And whenever she wants a PlayStation game, she has to approach her with this framework of recommending a new game. So awesome tips all over the board. I do have a side tip that is kind of additional. You said this was your first meetup talk.
Mhm.
Do you have any tips for someone wanting to give their first meetup talk?
um, Tips for, I would say, just jump into it. Like I found myself thinking like about like how am I going to sound? What am I going to say? Will people even be interested in what I'm going to say? And I just kind of just put that all aside and wrote down a lot of things. I have Notion and I have Remarkable. I spent a lot of times just like writing documentation
Yeah.
and just keep writing and then like crossing out things and then saying, okay, I'll say this, maybe not this way. So a lot of iteration, but definitely practice
Yeah.
um, what you're going to say. As also when at least for me, my kind of framework when creating the slides was don't necessarily put all your information out on slides. Create a roadmap from your slides and use that as a more of a guide to kind of like your talk and not necessarily like a key like a place where you're just reading off the slide.
Yeah. Right on. Well, it was fantastic, and you are filled with lots of great tips. So awesome stuff. I do have a question from the chat from Carolina. Curious if all the stakeholders that you worked with cared about the same kind of problems, and how did you get them to be on the same page when you were talking about that?
So that's a great question. um, the stakeholders that I had to converse with for the most part had a similar problem, but they had different iterations of the problem. They were focused on very specific, they had specific focuses of the particular problem. So if we were looking at like, let's take like replacing a blog as an example. On the one hand, most some people would say, oh, we want to improve taxonomy for like the blog. Another person would say, I want to be able to update content as quickly and efficiently as possible. Another concern would be, oh, I want to be able to, like from a developer's aspect, I want to be able to deploy as quickly as I possibly can and reliably, and not have to necessarily worry about DevOps and stuff like that. So different, the main goal is like the main problem is the same, which is like kind of replacing the blog, but
Mm-hmm.
different aspects to that.
Right on. And the timeline part stuck out a lot to me. Such a huge consideration for companies, and it can like make or break. Like, can we get this up and running by the time we need it, or we have a lot of time, and can we make it exactly what we need it to be? So that was a good point. And then also, great tip for starting at the top of the ladder, and then they'll tell you who to speak with.
Mm-hmm.
That way, you're not having to work up. You just go from the top, and yeah.
Right.
So I don't think there are any more questions. I'm sorry if I missed one. I'm trying to keep an eye on chat, but there's a lot of love for your talk in the chat, so definitely go check it out. Again, everyone watching, you can find the chat at slack.sanity.io under the Meetup channel, and there's There's a lot of claps and high fives and smiley faces, so definitely go check that out. Thank you so much, Serge, and we will see you around.
Yep. Thank you so much. And thank you to the community for allowing affording me this opportunity.
Of course. Thank you.